Hey everyone, this video is a basic intro to Toon Boom Harmony. The point of it is to get you up and running with Toon Boom quickly. Now, Toon Boom has elements similar to Flash, Maya, and After Effects and Premiere. It is a vast and deep program with a ton of functionality, and it takes time to learn all it's capable of. This video will ignore most of its capabilities and focus on giving you the essential info you need to know in order to have an efficient workflow for traditional 2D animation in Toon Boom. So, let's get started. When you first launch Toon Boom, you get this start screen where you can specify the name of your scene, which I've renamed here to be test, where you want the file to be saved, your camera size, your screen resolution, your frame rate, and your field of view. Once you've specified these things, and I'm just going with the default here, you can click Create Scene, and it'll take you to Toon Boom's workspace. If you ever want to change those settings, what you can do is go under Scene Settings, and you can modify any of those things to whatever you want. In the workspace, you've got the main window here that contains the camera and the drawing view. You've got the main toolbar on the left, additional menus on the right, and the timeline on the bottom. Usually to start off with, I get rid of the color menu because I won't be needing it at first, and I also get rid of this thin strip right here, the art layer menu, by just right-clicking it and deselecting it. If I need more space, I can temporarily hide menus by just clicking these arrows right here, and that gives me a larger drawing space. I can also get them back real quick by just clicking those arrows again. I can also adjust the size, the space the menus take up by just kind of dragging these windows around. You can also, drag windows around and rearrange menus similar to how you can do in Photoshop. But let's say that I, for some reason, mess up the workspace. For example, maybe I got rid of the main window and the camera and drawing views, and I don't know how to get it back. If that ever happens, you can always restore the default workspace by going to Windows, Restore Default Workspace, and you'll get all the default windows back, and you can start again. I'd like to explain a little bit of the difference between the camera and drawing views in Toon Boom, since it can be a little confusing when you're first starting out. So basically, the camera view will show you the field of view, which tells you what the camera sees and what will render out when you export your scene. So everything within this box, which is your field of view, will render out, but anything outside this box won't render out. Also, in the camera view, all the layers are transparent, so you can see them all at once. So for example, I have the stick figure on one layer and the background on another layer, and I can see them both at the same time since the layers are transparent. In contrast, if you go to the drawing view, you can see that the layers aren't transparent, and you will only see what the layer that you have highlighted at the moment. And you'll also notice that there is no field of view box. Basically, the drawing view mimics animating on 2D paper and doesn't show things like the field of view and all the layers at once. To see multiple layers, you need to actually switch on the light table, which is here. And it's as if you were seeing through sheets of paper and animating in real life on 2D animation paper. And that's how you would be able to see all the layers at once. So again, but if you went to the camera view, all the layers would always be visible, unless of course you adjusted the visibility of the layers by clicking on their visibility. I usually work in the camera view so that I am conscious of how I'm staging things in the frame, and I also recommend that when you're first starting out, to prevent confusion, just always work in the camera view. Let's go over some useful tools and shortcuts in Toon Boom. To pan across the screen, you can hold down spacebar, and you can move left, right, up, and down anywhere you'd like. To zoom in and out, you actually use the number keys 1 and 2. So if I hit 1, I zoom out, and if I hit 2, I zoom in on the viewport. Now, zooming in and out also works in the timeline menu window. So if I select the timeline and make it the active window, if I hit 2, you can see that the frames appear larger, and if I hit 1, they zoom out and appear smaller. You can also achieve that by dragging the slider down here to make the frames larger and smaller. So depending on which window you have selected, it will affect either the timeline window or the camera window. So you can tell what the active window is by the red highlighted border. Whatever is in highlighted red is the active window. So I'm going to go back to the camera view now, and when I hit 1 and 2, it will zoom in and out of the camera view. Another useful shortcut is rotating the view. So if you hold down Control and Alt, you get this turntable thing here that kind of recalls back to traditional animating. So you can rotate it, and if you have a certain angle you like to draw at, this can be very useful and handy to get the drawing stroke angle that you want. It can be very helpful for cleanup and whatnot. Let's say you want to reset the rotation, then you can hit Shift X, and that will reset the rotation. Another useful shortcut is, let's say you were working and somehow you zoomed into a wrong spot and you have no idea where you are right now in your workspace. To reset your workspace view, you can hold down Shift M, and it will take you back to your main drawing area. And I'll just zoom out a little bit so we can see the field of view. Probably the most important tools you'll need for traditional 2D animation are the drawing tools. So for this video, I'm going to show you the brush tool. You can select the brush tool from the main toolbar right here. And this is the brush tool. And you can see that under the tool properties menu, now for this right menu, I often have it set to tool properties just so that I can see what other options there are for the tool I've selected. And you can see that depending on the tool you've selected, so this is the select tool, the tool property options will change. And so when you select the select tool, these are the additional options you have for that tool. But let's go to the brush tool. So under tool properties, you can adjust the size of the brush. You can adjust the smoothing. You can also choose from different brush options to draw with. So depending on what you prefer, you can choose different ways of drawing. So for myself, I prefer the soft brush. This seems to me to have the nicest drawing experience, and it kind of feels most like the pencil tool. But you can experiment with what you prefer. With the brush tool selected, you can access other tools dynamically. So for example, let's say we have the brush tool selected and I'm making some marks. Okay. So if you hold down O with the brush tool selected, holding down O, you can actually dynamically resize the size of your brush. So I've just made this larger, and if I hold down O and drag left, I'm making the mark smaller. So this is with holding down O while you drag left and right on the screen. If you hold down Control with the brush tool selected, you can actually select different parts of the drawing by just swiping through or circling the desired select area. If you hold down E, you can erase while in the brush tool. Another useful tool is the select tool, which is the black arrow on the main toolbar. Alternatively, you could hit Alt S, which is the keyboard shortcut for the select tool. You're in the select tool when your cursor turns into it looks like a little lasso. You can select things by either just swiping through it, or you can select it by drawing a big circle around the selected area. Now when you select something, like let's say I just wanted to select the head, and you can see that I'm lassoing the entire area, it actually selects any stroke that the select tool kind of comes across. So because I swiped through the body, it kind of connected the two and made it one selection. So sometimes it's a little easier to just swipe through that part that you want selected. And you can also tell that the select tool basically just selects per stroke, so you can tell that I made the head in one stroke, the body in another, the arms in another. Now if you want to add to a selection, so let's say I selected the head, I can hold down Shift and select again, and it will add to my selection. Select again, selecting the legs, and then you can select the body, or alternatively you can just lasso the whole thing like I did earlier. And these are the different ways you can select items on the screen. Once selected, you can rotate by just adjusting the bounding box. You can scale and move different, the thing any kind of differently. If you hold down shift, it'll do it proportionally, resize, but you can play around with that. So let me just go back. And that's basically the select tool. Now, a word about shortcuts. Coming from a Photoshop background, Toon Boom shortcuts might seem a little bizarre. I thought so at first. At first I was like 1 and 2 to zoom, what the nut, right? But then I realized shortcuts seem to be assigned so they could be keyed with one hand so that the other hand could always be ready to draw. Then the shortcuts made more sense, and I could see how useful they were for an efficient workflow. So if you're coming from an Adobe background and you're used to shortcuts a certain way, just remember that I think Toon Boom was designed so that you could hit shortcut keys with one hand and draw with the other, and that does make for a more efficient workflow. Now let's go over the timeline and navigating the timeline. So here's the timeline. First thing we want to do is zoom in on the timeline window here to make the frames a little bigger. So to do that, we will hit 2 to zoom in, and remember 1 is to zoom out. So let's move these and make these a little bigger. All right, so right here, this red marker is the playhead, and by dragging through, you can scrub through your animation like this. This red bracket here, you can either shorten or extend to increase the number of frames of your animation. So that makes it really easy to adjust the number of frames. Up here, you could see some other controls. These are the playback controls. This loops it, this plays it. This tells you what frame you're on. This is the start frame, this is the stop frame. And this stop frame you can adjust so that, let's say you have a 49 frame animation, but you only want to play 10 of it. So what you can do is adjust this to 10, frame 10, to stop in frame 10, and you can see that a little black marker here appears, and this tells you that when you hit the playback, it will only play from frame 1 to 10. As you can see, it's stopping right now when you hit play. Now, some useful shortcuts to navigate the timeline include hitting Shift-Enter to toggle play the animation. So instead of hitting this play button right here, what you can do is hit Shift-Enter, and that will also play back. If you want to loop the animation again, you can just hit the loop button, and when you hit Shift-Enter, it will just go on a repeating loop starting from your start frame and your stop frames, which once again you can specify to play only a segment of the animation if you want. Alright, so let's stop that. To scroll through each frame, what you can do is you can hit the comma and period key. So comma goes backwards and period goes forward. So you can step through your animation frame by frame with these keys. Shift comma goes to the first frame of the animation, and shift period goes to the stop point of your animation. So right now all the drawings in this scene are held for 1 frame. As you can see here, each drawing is held for only 1 frame in the timeline. To extend or decrease the exposure of your drawings, you can use the shortcut keys, the plus and minus key. So for example, for the A key, let's say we want to extend it to 2 frames. So what I'll do is select the frame and then hit the plus key, and I will have held it for 2 frames. So you can see that the A is in frame 1 and in frame 2. Let's do the same for the B key. Hit the plus key to extend the exposure, and you could see that the B frame is also now held for 2 frames. One way to kind of tell this visually is you could see how these frames are held for 1 frame, and you can see the white borders clearly showing that, and then the white borders for the A and B drawings have 2 frames in between them. So for C, you can just continually hit the C key. Let's say you held it for a lot of frames, but you changed your mind later and you wanted to get rid of some exposure. So what you can do is just hit the minus key, and that will subtract the exposure for the frames. So you can take all these down back to 1. Now let's say you know you want to hit all the drawings and hold them for 2 frames. One quick way to do that is select all the frames, right click, go to exposure, and you can see the shortcuts here, but go to exposure and say set exposure to 2, and that will automatically apply an exposure of 2, or hold every drawing you have for 2 frames in all the frames that you selected. So as you can see, everything is being held for longer in this timeline right now. Let's say we want to add more letters to our alphabet animation. So right now we have A to F, and we want to add G. So what we can do is we can step to the next place in the timeline, and you can see that it's in the blank space right now, and just start drawing, and it will draw and create a frame wherever you start drawing, and it will automatically populate a frame so that now you have F and G. Let's say we want to align the letters a little bit more, so let's undo that. Oh, you can either undo that, or let's just draw that again, or you can delete frames by just selecting the frame and hitting the delete button. It's very easy to get rid of frames. But let's say we want to place it a little more accurately. There's something called onion skinning in animation, and how you activate onion skinning in Toon Boom is you can either hit the symbol right here, which is onion skin. You can show onion skin, or you can hit the shortcut key, which is Alt-O, and you'll get the onion skinning too. Here what you can do is, you'll notice that around the playhead there are brackets here. So you can adjust how much onion skinning you see. So you can extend all the way back if you want to, and see all the frames backwards, or you can just set it so that you can see 1 frame ahead and 1 frame behind. It's really up to you, so it's really flexible. So let's say, okay, I have 1 frame ahead and 1 frame behind, but right now all I want is to align it with the F. So I will just align it with the F, and maybe make it a little bit bigger, the brush size, and align it like that. So again, to create a new frame or drawing, if I want to extend it, I'll GH, I guess, I, and we can go on, and you can see how the onion skinning is showing what's before and behind as I've set it. So now we've got the alphabet up to I, but let's say we want to add something in between frames we've already put down. So let's say we want to add something in between the B and the C drawings. So in order to do that, what you can do is you can hit Shift J to add a blank space before the playhead. So as you can see here right now, between B and C, there's now a blank frame for that's available to be drawn in. If you want to turn on onion skinning to see where you are, the drawings before and behind, you can. And let's say what we want to do is, I don't know, do a B and a lowercase b, right? And you can see that now after creating a space for it with Shift J, let's turn off onion skin so you can see this more clearly. There's now B, BB, and then C. So once again, let's say we wanted to do the same thing between C and D, right? We wanted to add an upper and lowercase c. So what we want to do is go to the point where we want to insert a blank frame, and I will hit Shift J to insert that. I'll hit Alt-O for an onion skinning so I can see what I'm doing, and I will create a new drawing in between. Another useful tool that's good to know is the Reposition All Drawings tool. So let's say you have an entire animation done, and then you realize that instead of having it here, you want it, I don't know, more to the right. So what you can do is, to do this quickly, is underneath the select tool on the toolbar, there's something called Reposition All Drawings. So you can select that tool, and you can see that all the drawings on your selected layer have been highlighted, right? And now what you can do is just grab it and move it to wherever you want in your field of view, and it will automatically move every frame in that layer that you've selected. So it will reposition all drawings like it, so it says what, or it does what it says it will. And that can be a useful tool in your animations. The only other thing that I really want to tell you guys is how to add other layers. So basically, an easy way to do that from the timeline is under here for layers. You can add or go to this plus sign, and you have an option of several different types of layers. Most of the time when you're doing your rough animation and whatnot, you'll just add another drawing layer. So you hit drawing, you can add and close, or you can keep adding layers if you want to add a bunch of layers at once. But basically, you know, to add a layer, it'll do this. If you have a duplicate name of the layer, it will just add a -1 or -2 if they all have the same name. But otherwise, to rename a layer, what you can do is just click on this and just type in a new name. And that's about it for the shortcuts and tools for the timeline. There's something about drawings and copy and pasting frames in Toon Boom that you guys should be aware of. Toon Boom regards drawings as sort of like symbols, and it actually stores each drawing that you make in a library of sorts. So this can become an issue when you use a drawing to sort of work from and create a new drawing. So as an example to illustrate this, let's say you have this animation from A to G, and what you want to do is add an A with serifs as the next frame. So you might think, well, to save time, you can just use the A that you already have and then just add some serifs to it. So you might do, you might copy Control C and then paste the A so that now you have another A, and then you would just maybe add some serifs to it. Well, that's a big serif. All right, so let's say you have these serifs. What you might not realize is when you adjust a drawing, it will actually, or when you just copy and paste a frame directly, it actually treats this drawing, it's an instance of the first drawing, and you will actually, when you modify this drawing, modify all instances of that drawing. So you can see that the first A has actually changed to reflect the changes that you made. And you know, in certain cases, this can be useful. Say like you forgot a mouth on one of your drawings, so, and you've used that drawing multiple times, and you can easily, I don't know, change one drawing and it will update all other instances of that drawing in your animation. But what if you want to work from a drawing and just modify it and treat it as a new drawing? How do you tell Toon Boom to recognize that? So let's undo all of this to get, and let's get rid of this frame since it's just basically a clone of that drawing, the first drawing. So what you want to do instead, in order to get Toon Boom to recognize a new drawing off of an old drawing, is you want to select your drawing manually. So what you can do is basically select the drawing and copy the drawing, not the frame. So Control C, and then go to the place where you want to paste it, and then Control V to paste. And now Toon Boom will recognize this A as a new drawing. So what you can do now is add your serifs, and it will treat this as a new drawing and not affect your first other drawing, the first instance. So again, to copy and paste frames, if you copy and paste a frame, that's going to be, Toon Boom's going to treat that drawing as just an instance of the original drawing that you made. And in order to work from a drawing clean and get Toon Boom to recognize it as a new drawing, you'll have to actually select the drawing itself, copy and paste it into a new frame, and in that way it will treat it as a new drawing and won't update any of the old instances that you have of the original drawing you worked from. In this video, I'll demonstrate a workflow for rough animation using the tools and shortcuts we've learned so far by animating a ball bounce. So for this ball bounce animation, I'm going to start with describing the path of action, describing the movements by putting in the keys first. So I'm starting with the beginning position where the ball's hitting the ground, and I'm flipping back and forth right now using the shortcut keys, the comma and the period, so that I can make sure that it's having the motion that I want so far. So it's very important that while you're animating, you're always flipping to make sure you're getting the movement and the feeling that you want. Notice that I'm not paying too much attention to cleaning, like clean lines, right? I'm not at the cleanup phase. All I want right now is the sense of movement. I'm putting in a squash right now. I'm describing that movement, noticing that it's misaligned, so I'm just going to quickly select it using the control key while I'm in the brush tool, so I can move these initial keys into the right place. So keys you want to have sort of in the place that you want, right? So because from these keys you're going to be building the rest of the animation, so you want to make sure that it's as it's describing what you want, the movement and the feeling. So right now I'm testing the squash, flipping back and forth to see how it feels. I'm turning on onion skinning so I can kind of check the placement and the path of action too. And onion skinning is turned on by Alt-O. And here I am getting ready to paste in the last key where the ball returns to its original position at the apex. And what I'm going to do is, because I want the first and last key to be the same, I'm just going to copy my first frame and paste it in the fourth keyframe position, so that it describes the full motion where the ball bounces, hits the floor, and then goes back to its original apex. And I'm just scrolling through. Now I'm ready to start putting in the breakdowns and the in-betweens. So I hit Shift J to insert a blank cell in between the first and second key. As you can see, I'm flipping through and turning on onion skinning so that I can check the movement and the breakdown and in between keys. So I'm going to continue to break down. So I'm visualizing my timing and spacing where I kind of want to have an ease out or ease in. I'm never sure which phrase is the right one, but anyway, I'm trying to get it so that it accelerates out of its initial apex position. So I'm going to continually have the distance, but favor the apex a little bit so that it has that sense of easing. Or slowing in, slowing out. I've heard it described that way too. So right now I'm just mainly using shortcuts with one hand and drawing with another. Inserting blank cells in order to get the frames in between my existing keys. Now in Toon Boom, there are things you can do where you can assign keyframes and you can jump from that and label your things as breakdowns and whatnot. But I actually don't like to interrupt my workflow for that sort of thing. I guess if you want to work that way, that's totally great. But what I like to do is just basically throw down the keys and then start inserting the breakdowns, especially for a rough animation. Maybe for cleanup or further passes, I might start assigning things and breaking things up like that. But initially, what I want to do is not have anything interrupt my workflow and just animate. So all I really need is how to step forward and back so I can flip, onion skin, and also how to insert cells in between frames. And here I am breaking down and in-betweening the second half of the animation where the ball is returning to the apex after it hits the ground. I'm not paying too much attention to volumes and stuff. Maybe I'll kind of correct things because it's so easy in Toon Boom, where if I see something that's really not the same volume, maybe I'll just quickly select it with the control tool and resize it really quick. But again, right now I'm just trying to describe the rough movement. I'm not too concerned with volumes, not too concerned with the clean lines. You can see that I'm sort of adjusting the volumes right now because I'm noticing that the balls or the circles are really small. But this is again a rough pass. So I'm playbacking and I'm adjusting the stop frame since my animation isn't 60 frames and not that long. So I'm adjusting it to the 13 so I can get a better sense of the playback, looping it, and the movement's pretty good. What I'll do now is increase the exposure to 2s. And I can do that through the menu option. Selecting all the frames, right-clicking, going to exposure, and setting exposure to 2. Notice it kind of sticks at the top because I have the top drawing held for 4 frames essentially, so I'm just going to start deleting and decreasing the exposure of the first and last frame. Just adjusting where the stop frame is again so I don't get that blink. And I have a rough ball bounce. Later, I'd adjust volumes, clean up the lines, finesse the timing and spacing, but for now, it's all about movement and feeling. Okay, let's go over how to export your animation from Toon Boom. To export, what you can do is go under File, Export, choose Movie if you want a movie from it. You can specify what you want to name it. I've named it Test here, and I'm going to put it on the desktop. What I'm going to do for the export range is actually, since it's only an 8-frame animation, I'm just going to put 1 to 8. Keep the resolution. Check the movie options real quick. The compression looks okay. If I wanted to change it, I could go into settings and I can adjust settings here, but right now I'm just going to go with the default and just click OK and OK. So right now it exports the movie, and let's take a look. Let's play it. Now you might be wondering, oh, there's nothing here. What happened? I'll tell you what's happening right now. Basically, you have to remember that all the camera layers are transparent. So what you have, if you don't have a background to your animation, a black drawings on a black background will create a black screen. So if you're getting just black, you've probably forgotten to add a background, and what you want to do as an easy way to get around this, if you don't have a background ready yet and you want to see your animation exported and showing up, is you go down to the layer and you can add a color card layer. So click on the plus sign, click on color card, and this will add something of a colored background. Right now it's white, but if you want to adjust the colors, you can choose different colors too. Let's keep this and let's try that again. File, export, movie, 1 to 8, everything else being the same. Let's click OK again. Let's overwrite the existing one. And now it shows up with the background. You should know enough about Toon Boom now to start creating traditional 2D animations, though I highly recommend you watch other tutorials to see the many other cool things this program can do. Okay, happy animating.